Hey guys, going on? Mike the K-Man Q here again, Paleo Problem Island, MikeTheKman.com. We got another edition of Monday Nights with Mike, live stream Q&A. You know the deal. Put your questions and comments down in the comment box down below. And yeah, sorry for a little bit of relative absence lately. Been super swamped with different projects, and this semester has really been kicking my butt. So really had to focus on that a little bit more. Plan on getting back to the daily videos soon. I'm just gonna pull up here on my phone. Okay, so while I'm waiting for you guys to put your questions down below, I'm gonna start out with a question I got from my good friend Taekwon Joe, and he was over at the gym today, over at Long Island MMA, and essentially we're gonna start out talking about what to do if your kombucha gets hot. So, hey Tori, what's up? So essentially though, if you have a fermented food, kombucha being one of them, a fermented drink, which is fermented tea, right? So when you're fermenting it, you have bacteria and yeast. In that particular case, sometimes it's just bacteria, other times it's yeast, and sometimes it's a combination thereof. So kombucha uses a SCOBY, okay, which is a symbiotic community of bacteria and yeast. So clearly it has both. If it warms up, what's going to happen is it's going to keep fermenting. So provided your kombucha bottle, or however you have it set up, is still sealed, it's not going to be a problem, meaning that nothing else is going to get in to contaminate it. So, the only problem with your kombucha getting hot is that it's not going to taste particularly good while it's still hot. But if you take that bottle and you go and put it back in the fridge, it won't be a problem. Again, provided it's still sealed. Now, that does come with a caveat on that even if it were to unseal, even if they were to open up and you were to try to drink that and it had other things get into it. The beautiful thing about kombucha is that it is basically a completely sterile environment for most things. So most pathogens would not be able to survive inside that kombucha. The reason why is that given the process of the fermentation of the bacteria and the yeast, what ends up happening is most of the sugar content that's in there, it has already gone. So that SCOBY eats most of it. From there, it goes and produces various acids, but I'm trying to think of what I wanted to say there. It produces various. So lactic acid's one of them, but it produces organic acids. Wow, brain fart. Sorry, guys. Produces various organic acids, which are beneficial for us, but not so much for other types of bacteria and yeast. So what's going to happen is that high acidity count, the high acidity given the production of the organic acids is actually going to kill most pathogenic or bad bacteria that might contaminate it. The third part of that is that kombucha actually does have an alcohol content. Now, a lot of the alcohol does get removed in commercial grade kombuchas, but if you're making it at home, a lot of people are worried that, oh, isn't it going to get contaminated? Well, no. Between those organic acids with so it's the high acidity, between that, the alcohol content, and the low sugar left over from the fermentation process, not really going to be a problem. On top of that, when you're doing it at home and you have it eating that sugar and everything, oh, well, I was going with the acidity. So when it produces organic acids, that acidity, we've talked about that before in the context of our stomach. So your stomach acid is designed to stop pathogenic or bad bacteria from going through the esophagus all the way down into your gut. So when people have that low stomach acid, things can get through and they can colonize the small intestines, colonize sections where they don't belong. And that in and of itself can create a big problem. So acid, generally speaking, is an excellent thing if we're talking about killing bad bacteria. So that kombucha, not a big deal if it gets warm. Just won't taste as good. And if you do that, it's actually probably going to ferment it a little bit more, so it may actually have some more benefit in the end. So so a bunch of people joined a little bit real quick. Mike, Anthony, Randy, Mo, what's up, guys? Jody, you didn't even pop up showing up, but hey, oh, there you are. That's funny. I got your comment before I saw you joined. What's up? How you doing? So we talked a little bit about kombucha real quick. And Steph, I actually saw that you popped in at some point. How you doing? So I talked a little bit about kombucha and why it's not a big deal if it gets warm and you have to cool it back down again. Ideally, if it's sealed, definitely not going to be a problem. Even if it's not, probably not going to be a problem. because the acidity and the alcohol content, not a big deal. So, just taking a break from Game of Thrones spoilers to watch me. I appreciate it. So, regarding regarding that, I mean, we can always discuss Game of Thrones spoilers or just Game of Thrones in general if you like. If there's no other health questions besides the kombucha one, we can always talk Game of Thrones. Jody got a migraine. Jody, do you have fire cream yet? If not, I have to yell at you then. Because I've talked about it a number of times, particularly in the context of headaches, and especially since Steph is on right now. Steph can co-sign on this for me. Fire cream is an incredible thing for all types of headaches. So, if that's the case, I have to yell at you, Jody. I don't remember ever sending you one. Seriously? You don't know what the fire cream is? Oh, you're killing me. Hold on. I have to comment on my own damn thing. Okay. Bear with me for 1 second as I post this in there, guys. Okay. Since starting ozone therapy a few months ago, I've had a decrease to my thyroid meds. I went hyper. Isn't that crazy? What are the possible mechanisms behind that? So give me 1 second. Let me go and unpack that for a second, Steph. And Jody, well, I've talked about it on a number of live streams, and you're a regular in my live streams. But yes, fire cream is something that I personally make, and hopefully soon will not have to personally make. More on that soon, but big potential announcement. That being said, the fire cream is excellent topically for headaches. I've seen it for a whole host of them, whether it be migraines, tension headaches, cluster headaches. It's been pretty successful across the board. Okay. Well, you don't have to be on it now. Just make sure you have that link for later, Jody. You gotta stay on the live stream for now. But, all right. So, Steph, going back to yours. Ozone therapy has led to a decrease in your thyroid meds because you were going hyper on them. Potential mechanism behind that. So, honestly, I never came across that in my research on either thyroid medications or thyroid health in general, or ozone specifically. Obviously, you'd have to put those two together. But, shot in the dark, if I had to venture a guess. So, obviously, you're generally on thyroid medications because you are hypo, meaning that you are producing insufficient amounts, so you're supplementing. Well, supplementing is the wrong word. You are taking it therapeutically to make sure you have enough. Now, your thyroid does help to control your metabolism. So, essentially, if I had to venture a guess, the ozone could potentially have two things I could see happening. One is that it is sending it through your system faster. The reason why I'd say that is that, so oxygen is obviously the transport system which helps to get nutrients into your system, into your cells. So potentially the extra oxygen may cause the thyroid to either to basically go and kick it through quicker. I'm not wording that the way it's making sense in my brain, but basically what I'm saying is it might increase the capacity at which you can absorb thyroid medication into your cells. The secondary way I could see it working would be, so a lot of oxygenated therapies, whether it be ozone or HBOT, so hyperbaric oxygen therapy, or even, it would upregulate the absorption of the thyroid medications. But the other ways, so the oxygen would be, the oxygen therapies, those, so like I said, the ozone, HBOT, hydrogen peroxide therapy, what they're doing is they're actually acting as a hormetic stressor. They're acting as a source of free radicals, which in turn will go and turn up your antioxidant capacity. And they will help to improve your mitochondrial function. So that's a major reason why we see HBOT and ozone and hydrogen peroxide therapy being beneficial in cancer patients, in chronic Lyme, and other chronic inflammatory response syndromes, so CIRS, while we see it beneficial in MS and other neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, post-stroke, Like the peroxide therapy, I know personally worked super well for my father after he had a stroke years and years and years ago. And after my one concussion, Taekwondo, the one we talked about before, during sparring, decided he was going to flick a kick out after I was super tired and put me to sleep. I was able to recover from retrograde amnesia, or anterograde amnesia, excuse me, Memento style, Finding Dory, Dory style. So recovered from that really quick within like a couple of days. I mean, 4 hours, I was back to functioning brain, as functioning as mine is. And from there, I was able to go back relatively to normal like within a couple of days. So my thoughts on that are that the reason why that might happen is that because your mitochondria are functioning more properly, you have a cleaner system, which again is a super squirrely way of wording that. I don't like that, but I can't. It'll have to do for now in terms of how I'm going to word it, because again, shot in the dark. The potential mechanism would be that it could help to upregulate the absorption of thyroid medication, causing your metabolism to go up, and stimulants can cause people to get hyper. The second way that I could see it working is that it basically helps to clean out your mitochondria, and in that process, perhaps because there is less burden on your organs, your thyroid actually may be functioning better. And because you are functioning better and you are now being stimulated by that thyroid hormone, you'd have to reduce it to not be hyper. Again, not completely sure that's correct, but in terms of shot in the dark mechanisms, that would make the most sense to me. HBOT is recommended. So again, for those, I said it before, but those who don't know what HBOT is, HBOT refers to hyperbaric oxygen therapies, and it's one of the forms of oxygen therapy. Obviously, it's in the name. It's for severe anemia. Mechanism behind that as well. You can tell that I'm really into my oxidative therapies lately. So same kind of concept is so how do you know that you have anemia? Well, you have abnormal blood cells. You have abnormal red blood cells, right? That's kind of the definitive characteristic of anemia. What are the primary causes? Deficiencies in iron, deficiencies in B12, and again, gross oversimplification, but for our purposes right now, the vast majority of people that are anemic are deficient in iron. So what is a primary purpose of your red blood cells? To go and transport oxygen. So if you don't have iron, your red blood cells aren't good. My verbiage tonight hasn't been excellent. You know what it is? These are all ideas that I don't have the strongest grasp on in terms of a working knowledge beforehand of the actual mechanisms. So there's certain things where I've done deep research into it. These are more, I understand the system and I'm trying to compact the thoughts. But essentially, because those red blood cells are transporters of oxygen, and if you are anemic, what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to transport as much because of the lack of iron or B12 or whatever the case is in your case of anemia. By going with the oxygen therapy, in this case, the oxygenation of the blood should be able to basically salvage, for lack of a better word, those red blood cells and be able to transport it a little better. So basically, you're almost saturating what remaining blood cells you have, the functioning ones, and you're saturating with enough oxygen that's going to transport it. So that combined with the potential to increase your mitochondrial function should be, red blood cells don't have mitochondria, but bear with me here. The rest of your function should be able to end up with a beneficial effect. So the short version of that meandering thought process right there is that the extra oxygen should basically help to carry load. So the way I'm envisioning it is, say, since we were talking Game of Thrones before, we we're joking about that. Let's say Euron Greyjoy showed up and destroyed half your fleet. Spoilers if you haven't caught up yet. Sorry. Destroys half your fleet. Now you don't have as many ships, so you don't have as many red blood cells to carry oxygen around. Well, what do? You transport in a whole bunch of oxygen, and now you overload those ships. Whatever remaining ships you have, red blood cells, are going to be packed to the gills with oxygen from that ozone therapy. So it would more or less mask the symptoms of anemia. I'm not saying that that's the only way it's going to work, and I'm also not saying that that's necessarily the correct way. What I'm saying is that would make the most sense as to why that'd be beneficial. The other end of that is, what do they do in terms of people that are trying to improve cardiovascular endurance? Those who go and do blood doping. So think cyclists, things that are endurance athletes, Lance Armstrong and all the others who got caught blood doping. What are they doing? They're taking out their blood, they're pulling it out, they're centrifuging it, and they're injecting more oxygen to it, re-injecting it. Why? The thought is to increase the oxygen capacity. So oxygen-related therapies could go and supersaturate the blood cells. That's kind of the thought process there. So that's the way I'd go with that. I see some people joined. Megan, Amanda, Lindsay, how you guys doing? All right, so far I talked a little about kombucha and why it's not a big deal for going and worrying about whether it gets too warm and then cool back down. It actually will not survive. Most pathogens will not survive in kombucha due to the high acid content, the high alcohol content, and the low sugar content. Talk a little bit about fire cream and migraines. If I can speak tonight, apparently not. Had a good class tonight with Al Percy, so a little tired after Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but talked a bunch about ozone, how potential mechanisms on how it could be beneficial for improving your thyroid potentially. Talked a little bit about how it could be beneficial for anemia. And actually, let's keep going with the HBOT therapy idea, because I was talking to somebody earlier about potential therapies for cancer, and haven't talked about that in a long time for obvious reasons, for those who know, for others who don't. Oxygen therapies are a very common thought process because hypoxia or insufficient oxygen is a common trait of cancerous cells. So the oxygen therapy is thought to work almost as a Trojan horse, in the sense that it's going to go in and it's going to basically explode, for lack of a better term, cancerous cells. They don't do well in high oxygen environments. So oxygenation can result in production of free radicals, which are, things that are damaging normally. And so when it goes in, it can basically go and explode that cancer cell again, sort of. So the various oxygen therapies, super good idea. Come inside, break it out. Other conditions, like we said before, neurodegenerative diseases, strokes, chronic inflammatory issues, all pretty good ideas. Sick Vic, what's up, brother? Woo! Yeah. What you got for me tonight, Vic? What kind of questions you got? There's gonna be some good ones. I'm gonna sip my drink a little bit while I wait for you. I know you're gonna have the best questions. It's gonna be a good one. All right. All right. What other questions we got, guys? What other questions we got? While I'm waiting for you, put some questions in. Like I was saying before, a little bit of a delay on my daily videos. Been super swamped right now with work. I apologize for that. Definitely plan on getting back to that pretty soon. Hopefully the next week or so, I'm going to really be crushing those again. Plan on doing a little bit more work with writing in general. Just been in a squirrely spot lately, so just super swamped mentally and just different things. John Zona, what's up, brother? How you doing? What's the matter, Vic? No questions, man? You're killing me here. Steph, you got anything else besides your HBOT question? I mean, you can keep asking more of those if you'd like, but my Game of Thrones analogies might have been there. Okay. Cheapest way to get loads of protein into your body. I got a couple ideas, Vic. I don't know how much you'll be into it. But honestly, eggs are a pretty good source, pretty cheap. Milk, if you tolerate it. What do you call it? From there, really depends on what you're looking to do. But how many grams do you need a day? It's a great question. Depends on what you're doing. Generally speaking, I like to see in the neighborhood of about 1 to 2 grams per pound of body weight. Now, a lot of the older literature will say 1 to 2 grams per kilogram body weight, which is basically half of that. It's 2.2 less than that, but whatever. So about half of that. So essentially, especially as if you're looking to build, I would go to at least like 2 grams a day, give or take. So I've done videos on that before about how we fear protein, and I don't think that's a wise assessment overall. Are there conditions where that's not an optimal thing? Yeah. Is it wise to overconsume on any macronutrient, whether it be fat, carbohydrate, or protein? Not really. But generally speaking, keeping protein on the higher end overall is generally speaking not going to be the worst thing you could do. Julian, what's up? How you doing? I saw somebody else popped in too, but then it scrolled away. Cheryl, how you doing? All right. I just did about every 180 grams per. Jody, I'll come back to yours because yours is a little more in depth. Bear with me on that for a second. 180 grams. Yeah, I mean, I would not see any problem with that, Vic. That wouldn't be terrible. I mean, realistically, if you did 2 or 3 meals, I mean, especially if you got like shakes and stuff in, 180 is not that crazy. I've gone higher than that before, and you honestly you weigh more than 92, so don't really see that being a problem. All right. Did just about every anti-cancer protocol there is a year or so ago. You have to throw a lot of therapies at cancer. I had a recurring ovarian tumor that was borderline a bunch of years ago, and this time it didn't register as anything. I can't say what helped, but if you have the time and patience, there's a lot you can do to keep it at bay or make it go away. It's a super long list. Just tying in with the HBOT talk, try to get access to hyperactive. Getting it in. Yeah, okay, cool. So if you go over to my website, I actually have a whole series on cancer and a number of therapies that I think that used in conjunction, if you can get to it early enough, can have some tremendous effect. And if you decide to read through that, Katie, what's up? How you doing? If you decide to read through that, you get a little bit of the back context of that story if you're not familiar with that. In my case, who I was working with, it was pretty damn far gone before I had a chance to actually start that therapy, that process. But I definitely think I have a solid idea of what can be done and what should be done on that. Would like to see, if you want to go over there and read through some of those and see how much of that lines up with what you were doing, that'd be great. I also have over there specifically about breast cancer as well. So, Tom, how you doing, brother? Yeah, so we talked a little bit about, guys, those who are joining late, talked a little bit about kombucha, why it's not that big of a deal if it goes and gets hot. Talked a little bit about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, some super awesome stuff there, a little bit of headaches, talking about cheap protein. Vic's got those questions there, and then a little bit about cancer at the end. Is there a secret way to get cheap food? It's funny, Vic, I did a whole video on why is it expensive to eat healthy, and I don't think that it is. I'll link to that before. In that video, I actually go and crunch through some numbers about why it actually isn't that expensive to eat healthy. So I'll post to that. It's not as bad as you would think. I mean, honestly, just off the top of my head, and you're talking about what's the cheapest source of protein, let's say you went and bought a pound of grass-fed meat. So ground beef, I want to say it's either 3 or 4 grams is the serving size on ground beef. I want to say it's 3 grams. Let's say ground beef is 3 grams for the sake of argument. I believe beef is about 24 grams of protein for a 3-ounce serving. A pound is 16 ounces, which means that it's 4 to 5 servings per pound, meaning a pound of grass-fed beef would be about 4 to 5. So it would be, give or take, 100 to 125, ballpark grams of protein for $5. So essentially you'd have close to that day's worth of protein for $5. You wanted 180. Throw in a couple of eggs, and eggs are about, I want to say, It's 7.4. Hold on, 70 calories, half its fat. Well, I say it's like 7 grams of protein per egg. So like 3 eggs would be another 20 grams right there. So maybe 3 eggs, maybe 3 eggs and a pound of bacon. A pound of bacon there too, but a pound, I guess I'll bacon there. A pound of protein, and that right there, 3 eggs. Even if you got grass-fed eggs, oh fuck, I'm turning mad. Pasture-raised eggs. It costs about $4.99 at most places, so whether it be Wildlife Nature, sometimes it goes upwards to like $5.99, $6.99, but you can get them as low as $4.99. Pound of grass-fed ground beef you can get at Stop and Shop for as $3.99. So pound of grass-fed ground beef plus we'll just call it 6 eggs to get you a lot closer, get you almost at your where you're at. So 6 eggs, which is half of that, and the pound of beef, and we're looking at essentially $8 for 5, 3, but 7, yeah, but $8, and you're about basically where you need to be in protein, and you'd have the highest quality of both grass-fed ground beef, organic grass-fed ground beef, and pasture-raised organic eggs, and you'd be paying about $8, and you'd be having your protein for the day. You'd be getting a good amount of fat in there. Throw in a pound of vegetables, which you can get again for super easy. A pound of steamable vegetables for $1 for a bag of them, and there you go. For $9, you have a solid meal for the day, and you'd be pretty good overall. All right. And on that video, I'll post you to that video. I actually break down similar to that, how you can eat for yourself, eat for a family, and how it's still cheaper than pretty much everything else if you do it right. It's mostly processed foods that you end up paying more for. Okay, Katie, the oil that comes off bacon. My friend cooks bacon and then cooks the eggs and that oil comes off. Is that bad for you? I'm a little confused about the bacon is healthy thing. All right. So I totally do that. And there's 2 aspects to that we're going to cover real quick. 1, bacon is healthy for you with some caveats. In terms of micronutrient density, it is actually incredibly micronutrient dense. We've talked about this on a couple of occasions, but in terms of the most micronutrient dense foods, number 1 for humans is organs and their organ products. So liver, kidney, all that fun stuff. Next up comes herbs and spices. After that is nuts and seeds. After that is cacao. After that is fish. And number 6 is pork. And of the top 10, I think the first 5 or 6 of those of the pork category are types of bacon. Now, is Oscar Mayer bacon going to be great? I mean, Yahweh will too there, Vic, because the Jews aren't crazy about it either. But yes, no, Muslims and Jews will be upset about the bacon. But anyway, bear with me here. So I could actually, you know what? That's actually a funny thing. I'll come back to that in a second. That's actually a really good story that we can talk about there. But anyway, so bacon in and of itself, super nutrient dense. Turkey bacon, actually not so much. Turkey bacon is not bacon, so please do not eat turkey bacon. If you're going to eat bacon, eat some damn bacon. And don't even get me started on tofurkey bacon and all that crap. No. So, regarding that bacon, the meat itself, super nutrient dense. The fat, however, not very nutrient dense. Now, this is where it gets into a little bit of a squirrely neighborhood, because while the fat is not nutrient dense, pigs have a very similar macronutrient, so a very similar fatty acid is what I'm looking for. A very similar fatty acid profile to humans in terms of the amount of saturated to monounsaturated to polyunsaturated fats. Their ratio, and I don't know the exact ratio breakdown between us and them, but I do know that it is practically identical, as close as it's going to get to as we do. So, in terms of incorporation, not that big of a deal. That being said, the bacon itself, definitely good. The grease, not necessarily the healthiest of the oils, but most oils in and of themselves are not nutrient dense. So they're going to have other benefits. But provided it's a quality source of bacon, definitely not a problem. If it's, a generic store brand, I wouldn't use it excessively, but let's put it this way. If they're cooking their eggs or they're cooking their vegetables in that, which I do, a lot of people say, I don't like vegetables. I don't like that. Well, have you ever tried them with bacon? Then you probably will like them then. So definitely a good buy-in for getting people to actually eat vegetables is using bacon. So that being said, while it's not the most nutrient dense, if it gets you to eat a bunch more vegetables, all power to you. All right, Jody says, and a lot of this is a bacon conversation. Yeah, all it started when I was trying to save for my mom. Oh, that's going back to the other one. Everything I learned from paleo about the chia bot helped me with saving me. Had it removed. Now I'm just in keep up mode. And yep, got it. So yeah, going back to that. Yep, different animal. Yeah, Martha's got some great stuff too. I always love the stuff she put up. I've known her for, well, not person, but I've known about, I've talked to her and stuff. I've known her for years. Great person. Katie, bacon grease is dope, 100%, especially if it's healthy pasture-raised pigs. Yep, exactly, very good. I touched on that a little bit. Vic, awesome, and Dollar Tree's going back to your protein one. And yes, totally a sin to throw away bacon grease. Turkey bacon is garbage. Does bacon have preservatives in it? Yes, as Jody mentioned, read your labels. Now, regarding, I should do a rap video. I'll think about it, Vic. I got some ideas in mind. In terms of, it might be the way to get me some viewers on my videos, right? So in terms of bacon preservatives, it's a great question. I've tackled it before, but the short, condensed version on that. So bacon gets a lot of bad rap for its nitrate content because nitrates are potentially carcinogenic, right? So the problem with there being carcinogenic, what happens is the nitrates go and produce compounds called nitrosamines, meaning nitrogen, amines, okay? Amines, amino acids, protein. So generally speaking, you need that nitrate to come in contact with a protein, and that theoretically is a carcinogen. It's been shown in animal studies, but it hasn't been proven in humans. Now, part of that has to do with the fact that we don't want to give nice people cancer, so we can't do randomized controlled trials with that. But that being said, it's reasonably anticipated to be a carcinogen. I don't know that necessarily it will be determined to be as such, but operating under the assumption that it is, what's the alternative? Well, people go and use no nitrates, right? Nitrate-free bacon. But if you look at that, what do they use? They use instead celery root powder. And celery root powder, if you look at that, why is that a problem? Well, what is a bigger source of nitrates than even processed red meats? Vegetables. What? That's right. Why? Nitrates are part of the storage form of nitrogen in various plants. So plants, celery being one of them, obviously, is actually an excellent source of nitrogen, or nitrates rather. Now, here's the thing. Nitrates can go two pathways. They can go towards the formation of those nitrosamines, or they can go to the formation of nitric oxide. And so regarding that split, regarding whether or not it's going to be a problem, really depends on which way it goes. So, in fact, you may know some people that are taking nitrates now. I mean, well, some people use it for other things. There's a legal market for that, for using it for funky things. Google it if you like. I'm not going to get into that more. But the other option is if you have heart conditions, nitroglycerin, it's a derivative of those nitrates. So that's another pathway that can go down. Nitroglycerin is a derivative of nitric oxide's pathway, goes down the similar pathway. Anyway, nitric oxide is essential for vasodilation, so it helps to control your blood pressure. Anyway, back to where we were. Basically speaking, I don't think the big problem with nitrates is going to be coming from the carcinogenic potential, because if you're eating anything else with those vegetables, you're still going to be producing nitrosamines. Where I think the problem comes in, and Jody, I see that you mentioned that Rob Wolf did an article on it, and you used to think it was. I actually did an article on it for Calc Nutrition a number of years back, and my thoughts on it are that it's not the nitrates themselves that are the problem. We encounter them in a lot of places. I think the bigger issue is that in the nitrates, the industrially produced nitrates that are being used in a lot of processed red meats, or just processed food, processed meats in general, but what I think they're using, the problem is that they're using nitrates that have gone through the industrial process, and there's actually an allowable limit on the amount of heavy metals that can contaminate that. So I'm thinking the bigger issue is heavy metal contamination in those nitrates. So the bacon isn't the problem. The nitrates that are being used to preserve that bacon aren't the problem in and of themselves. It's the industrially produced nitrates that are contaminated with heavy metals, arsenic, cadmium, lead. That, I think, is the bigger problem. There's definitely some interesting literature on that end of it. And if you look at what some of the issues are, inflammation generally induced in the gut, right? Red meat causes cancer in the gut. It's horseshit, but I literally have hours of talking on that. I did the Life of Fighter podcast on the WHO report, and I've tackled it a couple of times on both live streams and a couple other things. Don't get me started on that for now. Short version is that, generally speaking, I think the bigger issue is that it's causing the inflammation by way of free radical damage in terms of that heavy metal toxicity. And it's low grade heavy metal toxicity. And I think that's the bigger issue. So, the K's having weird food allergies, seeing allergists think the preservatives are the issue. Possibility. I mean, definitely an issue there. But it could also be potentially, again, an overload from that, the heavy metal toxicity. Paul wants to know, is there a law against driving and watching Ask Mike the Caveman? Listening, probably not. Watching, probably. But, I mean, I'm not going to advise that you do it, but I'm not going to advise that you turn me off. Thanks, buddy. And Paul, I had some great roles with Paul over at Lorana MMA. We got some jiu-jitsu in real quick. Okay. Do I make money doing this? That's a great question, Vic. And I am not monetized on YouTube. I'm not monetized here on Facebook. So, no. Directly, no. However, what I've been thinking about doing again, as I've been thinking about starting up a Patreon, I did create a Patreon. I haven't really promoted it much, but Patreon is, if you're not familiar, a lot of people, particularly if you're in the, watching YouTube videos and stuff, know about that now, is that Patreon is a way to support creators, content creators of videos, music, whatever it may be. And basically you can set up almost like, donations, but it's rather than being donations where it's going towards like a charity or some other health related issue or whatever a GoFundMe might be, or being towards, a startup company like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or those things. What Patreon is, it's dedicated towards content creators, artists, writers, musicians, and it's been very popular in the YouTube community. And I started one up, but again, I feel a little swirly with promoting that a lot. I have a Patreon. If you guys enjoy the content I put out, and I definitely plan on doing more on the, going back to my daily video schedule soon. If you do, I have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Mike the Caveman. If you want to donate $1, $1 a month, you have little things where you set up that way, that'd be awesome. If you don't, then whatever, I'm still going to be doing it either way. So, the other aspect of that is that I have gained, because gotten is terrible English. I have gained, new clients from doing these videos, and I have gained, various people who have been able to help with different things. So, with that, if you want to donate to the Patreon, great. I also have ideas for T-shirts. I really need to talk to my buddy Jeremy and actually get these going. I have 2 T-shirt designs already lined up, 2 Ask Mike the Caveman T-shirt designs. I tried to sign up for an Amazon merch account, but I haven't heard back from them yet. That's kind of a pain in the butt. But it'd be awesome if I'd be able to do that, because you just upload the design and then it's available on Amazon, and then they print it as needed. They take their little cut, but it's do it as you go. So it's pretty awesome. I love that concept. It's a matter of getting into that. That's the biggest thing. So there's the Patreon. There's, it exists. I haven't promoted it much, but it's there. I plan on doing the shirts. I have gotten clients and stuff off of this. So, even if I didn't, the idea is I want people to have more knowledge. I want people to get so much value from this that they want to contribute back in some way or form, whether it be, I want people to actually do better. I want them to better their lives. Maybe it's a silly idea, but other than that, even beyond that, even if I were to monetize on YouTube, it's not, unless you're like, PewDiePie, who has 50 million subscribers, and then he got screwed in the whole number of ways. And if you don't know who he is, whatever, it's whole YouTube weird crap. Anyway, fact of the matter is, so the monetization aspect, especially now, there's a whole wave of, you can look it up. There's a whole bunch of content creators who are crying about the fact that they've been demonetized on stuff. YouTube's a very squirrely world right now in terms of monetization. So, and the only way you can be monetized on YouTube is by way of putting up ads. So I tried it for a little bit and decided, forget it. I'd rather people just be able to go to my content, watch it, enjoy it, and get something out of it, not be stuck behind the ads. And yeah, there's that aspect. A lot of people have been moving more towards the Patreon setup. If you want to look at it, so you're saying you have your channel, go to Patreon, Patreon, Patreon. So go over there and pay the hearts for people. You need to help people. That's what I do for a living. I feed people. Absolutely, Joe. I do the best I can. I try. Sam, how you doing? So yeah. Going back, Vic, to your Allah won't be happy. It's actually a really funny one about that. Chris, what's up, brother? So we were talking a bunch about bacon before, guys, if those of you who joined late. And Sam, if you're still here, if you didn't pop out, knows very well the benefits of adding bacon grease to vegetables. As someone who was unable to eat bacon for her entire life, and that's a whole squirrely neighborhood, I introduced her to bacon grease, and definitely changed her life. But regarding bacon and Allah being pissed, we were joking before about basically the fact that, Muslims and Jews are not particularly fans of bacon, pork products in general. Chrissy, what's up? So there is a concept put forth by John Durant, and I met him at a conference back in 2013 where he did a presentation called Moses the Microbiologist. And essentially, he also had it featured in his book, Paleo Manifesto. And the general concept on that is that the reason these things were banned, why they were against, in the case of Jewish culture, Moses, who funny enough, if you didn't know, Moses is actually the single most mentioned human in the Quran. Whole separate side note. So actually, the combination thereof is kind of funny. But referenced by name, there is no person in the book mentioned more than Moses. But anyway, so Moses set down the laws of Judaism, right? The first 5 books are his whole game. And set the laws, the foundations for the Old Testament. It set down a lot of foundations for Islam. And pork is one of those no-nos. It's in the book of Leviticus. And if you go through the book of Leviticus and you go through the different things that are illegal, whether it be pork, it be shellfish, or shrimp, you look things like no tattoos. Ironically enough, got a tattoo that's in Hebrew, so it's kind of funny, and I'm not even Jewish, but bear with me. So no tattoos. The whole big brouhaha with homosexuality, whatever. That's a whole different thing. You're not allowed to touch women who are on their period. No bats. No, you can't eat bats or any other animals like that. If you look at all of the things, if you break them down, look at each of them. Every single one of them deals with hygiene, and it's like, what? Look at them. If you didn't, tattoos. If you didn't have, the ability to clean up, and clean up things afterwards, what's going to happen is you can get infected. If you didn't, in terms of today, STDs, major problem. And again, if you didn't have modern things, or you weren't, not contraceptive, but you didn't have modern protective barriers, could be more of a problem. If we're talking about shellfish or pork, very often we're looking at parasite exposure. If we're talking about things like bats, why don't you want to eat bats? Well, bats eat mosquitoes, and they eat locusts, and they eat other things that are going to eat your food. And funny enough, all insects are banned except for except for the locusts and other crickets. So the Leviticus explicitly outlines that you're allowed to eat like 6 different types of locusts. Why? Well, those are, again, they call them grasshoppers, but bear with me on that. They're going to eat your crops. So all the things there were either vectors of disease, ways that you're going to get sick, things that could be majorly problematic if you don't have modern day concept of germ theory. And what is the book of Leviticus and what is Moses' laws there? Think about it this way, and this is the way John broke it down, is if you didn't have germ theory, which even that's a little squirrely, but if you didn't understand the concept that there are microbes that are in you right now, how would you explain to somebody that if you eat that, you might get sick because there's this little thing and it's invisible, you can't see it, but if you eat it, it's going to get you sick? How do you explain that to somebody? If you had to go back in time right now, well, see, these invisible things, if you eat, it's going to get you sick, and then you might die. It's like, oh, so like I'm being possessed? Well, no, it's a living thing, and there's no way to make sense to someone who doesn't understand the concept of germ theory. So it's a lot simpler to say, don't do this, or God will punish you. And the other end of that is, if you do follow these rules, God will reward you. So it's a very straightforward concept on that end, that regardless of your metaphysical beliefs on whether or not God exists, whole different animal. In terms of the outlined laws of the book of Leviticus and all those ones, it's actually, it may, again, I wasn't there, so I don't know for sure, but I really like John's ideas on that the book of Leviticus and all those other old-timey rules of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, a lot of them have to do with hygiene. So pork, we know how to cook it properly now. We know how to clear out those parasites. Not necessarily that big of a deal today. So, that book, not necessarily the biggest idea. Jody says, right on. It all makes sense now. Absolutely, yeah. John had a great idea there. Chrissy, hey, okay. So, and Mickey, what's up? So Chris says, when you have a moment, can you explain what Kim was telling me about the rice? Something with when you let it cool down? Sorry, off topic. No, not off topic at all. I mean, the whole idea on the live streams, Chrissy, is that we're going to run through whatever topics we get a chance to get to. And that one was kind of a side tangent because Sick Vic was asking, or Sick Vic made a comment. We were talking about bacon before. Katie asked about bacon, and Sick Vic made a comment about Allah not being happy with me. And I've never talked about actually, it's a lie. Talked about once in the hygiene video about Moses the microbiologist, and that was over a year ago. Haven't talked about it. It's a fun concept, so whatever. Cool story. So going back to the rice, yes. So what Kim was talking about is something called resistant starch. So essentially, if you go and you try to eat your starches raw, whether it be grains, so it's rice or even wheat and all that stuff, whether it is potatoes, beans, any of those things. If you tried to eat them raw, you'd be in trouble. You can't do it. Part of it has to do with phytonutrients that have to get broken down. The other part of it is the fact that we cannot digest those things. In their first form, they're not in a utilizable form by we lack the necessary enzymes to break it down. So when you cook it, it liberates that starch, and it creates the starch that we all know and love. The delicious stuff. So when you cool it, though, something interesting happens. It actually crystallizes and forms a new type of starch known as resistant starch. And so some of the raw starches are resistant starch type 1, some are resistant starch type 2. When you cook it and cool it, generally speaking, they produce resistant starch type 3. Now, why is that important? Well, one, if you notice, things like rice, if you cook it and cool it, it doesn't taste the same. Why? It's not the same starch. It changed. That's important for 2 reasons. One, because it became resistant again, you're actually going to be consuming less calories from cooled down rice than you would from cooked rice, from hot rice. Now, what's interesting about that's part of the reason why I believe that various cultures have cooked and cooled and then even reheated stuff. So whether it be refried beans in Latin cultures, sushi rice, now they add vinegar to it, and that's a whole different animal because that can change instant sensitivity. But essentially, what happens is when you cook it and cool it, it produces that resistant starch, and that's type 3. So now you're going to be eating less calories when you eat that. And that potentially could even have potential for why Asian cultures that do that eat the cold rice, maybe have less calorie intake. The other end of that, number 2, and more important than just the reduced calorie intake, is that resistant starch can actually be consumed. It's preferred, in fact, by various bacteria in your gut. So resistant starch can act as a prebiotic source of food for your gut bacteria. So you get both the benefit of less calories for yourself because you're not able to use them, but the bacteria in your gut can. Now, that does come with another caveat. If you are dealing with gut dysbiosis, meaning you have an overgrowth of pathogenic, bad types of bacteria, it can actually produce more farts there, Vic. So, generally speaking, if you have a moderately healthy bacteria, it will help make more healthy bacteria. If you have a pathogenic, if you have a bad one, it sometimes may feed the bad ones, and it sometimes may go and help to clean out those. And there are different thoughts on the matter. I generally will have people start super, super slow. And it's funny. Jody, actually, funny enough, if you go to Rebel Health's website, I did an article for them. I was the author on the resistant starch article for them, which was one of their first articles, too. It was years and years and years ago. Like 2 years ago, so it wasn't that many years, but whatever. So, yeah, we did an article for that. I also did a video on that sometime between the last year. I have a video here on resistant starch, but yeah, totally awesome stuff. That's why if I do go and consume rice, that's definitely the way to go about it. Yeah, and funny enough though, if you actually go and reheat the food, probably not that big of a deal. It doesn't, as weird as it seems, it doesn't go back to being regular starch. It stays as resistant starch. It's a squirrely concept, I know, but it's the case. So yeah, and yeah, no, absolutely. Is that your channel, Vic? You posted my stuff there, but you trying to promote yourself through there. It's okay. Yeah, everybody wants to go check out Vic after this. Go and check out Sick Vic. I'm sure he's got some great content over there. I can only imagine. Absolutely, no problem, Chrissy. Yeah, no, makes sense. And yeah, you can eat it cold or you can reheat it. But yeah, there's some super interesting stuff on the resistant starch. Oh, before you, one last thought on that though, if you have to run or anything. But on the thought of resistant starch, I need to go back and I need to go back and what's up, Nick? And recount my own story on that to be very clear and to establish some boundaries for your own safety. Because when I first started playing around with resistant starch, it was also when I first started playing around with Megaspore. So, here's where it gets fun. Essentially, I decided to be a hero. And I always tell people, if you want to go and if you have a good gut, generally speaking, you're going to want to start with 1 Megaspore a day. And then after a 2-week frame, you're going to go up to about 2 a day. Now, here's the thing with that. If you are severely messed up gut, I generally start people at half a spore a day, and then I give them go for about 2 weeks, and then up to 1 for 2 weeks, and then I'll go to 2, provided we see good results. Myself, thinking I have the best gut ever, I'll be fine, jumped right into 2 capsules a day after like 3 days. I listened to Michael, did 1 capsule a day for like 3 days, jumped into 2. However, concurrently, I was also incorporating resistant starch for the first time. And I was doing it in the form of potato starch. So raw potato starch, I was adding that, plus in the form of green plantains, which are another excellent source of potato starch. Of resistant starch. Potato starch, I almost call it potatoes, plantain starch, whatever. So I was adding, like an idiot, 2 green plantains, plus like a tablespoon of potato starch, which is about 50 grams of resistant starch, is way too much in one shot. Adding those into a shake and 2 Megaspores at the same time, and I will tell you right now, I thought I was going to die. So not only was I changing the bacteria through the megaspore, I was also feeding everything at the same time. So because of that, I had severe bacterial die-offs, and in the process, it was releasing endotoxins, LPS, and other endotoxins that were basically causing my system to like cramp up. Bad news. Don't do that. Start slow, because the fact of the matter is, most people's systems, as much as you like to think they're great right now, probably not. Your bacteria, for most of us, are generally pretty messed up. So after that, I decided I'm nixing the resistant starch for a little bit, and I went and moved towards just the megaspore. I started with that, and I started slow again. One capsule at a time for 2 weeks. After that point, I've been money with that. Then, from there, I slowly reintroduced one plantain, 1 tablespoon of potato starch, separately speaking, not all at the same time. Do not do that, okay? So if you want to start playing with the resistant starch, start in slowly, build your way up. Don't do it all at once with a lot of probiotics. Bad idea. Learn from my mistake. Kevin, what's up, man? If you want a good diet for loud farts but no sharts, it's a very hard one. So, honestly, because in my case, what I was doing was I was going pretty crazy and just jumping right in. With the rice and again adding in a strong probiotic, that's where I made a mistake. Some people who go directly towards the resistant starch end without the bacteria, and they can do fine. I would probably say, a cup here or there. Just basically like a regular serving size of rice. Just cook it and cool it and be ready to go. What's up, Frank? Jody, you said Megaspore makes you nervous. Go on. What's the problem? Why is it making you nervous? Sure, you covered this 100 times. Worst foods for inflammation. All right, so probably, but here's the deal. It really depends on the individual. So everybody has their own issues. And Katie before was talking about allergies and other food sensitivities. And when it comes to different types of inflammation, or when it comes to what causes inflammation, it could be different for a lot of people. That being said, I generally see issues with the grains, with the legumes, conventional dairy, but if we had to avoid most things, it's just processed foods. Processed foods in and of themselves are going to be the worst offenders. So what we're looking at in that case is a combination of, zero nutrient sugar plus usually vegetable oils, hydrogenated oils, plus some combination thereof of the wheat and other grains, of the soy, of the common dairy. So just no bueno. Processed foods, definitely the worst. Jody. Chris, I'll come back to your question in a second. Let me guess. You went and came across John Brisson, correct? Fix Your Gut. So John Brisson, Fix Your Gut. Okay, let's be very clear on this, people. Regarding the issue of, really, because that's the common one. Everybody that ever has an issue with Megaspore potentially being an issue generally comes across that idiot. To the point where if you said, where are you getting those concerns from, particularly? Normally people will go and Google it and they'll come across this guy's website, and I'm not going to say it again. If you want to rewind afterwards and hear it again, I don't want to give him any more promo. But essentially, it got to the point where I actually had to go and do a video against that guy, which, with the exception of like Bill Nye, I very rarely ever go in and do that, because the problem with that is that the problem with that guy, loose lip sink ships. You want to know where you heard it from? All right. Anyway, well, this knucklehead, he goes and argues that it could potentially be pathogenic because the spore form is going to go in and it can go and mutate. Is generally the idea. But here's the thing: when it's in that spore form, it's not changing. It's stuck there in that form for the time being. But when it opens up, it is no less susceptible to other bacteria, or rather to antibiotics, as any other bacteria. So it's not more or less resistant. Now, of course, if you go and you put it in with some MRSA. It could be potentially be problematic, but no, could be problematic, sure, but it's not going to. Basically, if you put it in the context of an antibiotic, when it's going down, it just won't come out. It won't proliferate. However, conversely, if you go and it has opened up, it has basically started to proliferate, it's going to be just as susceptible to it. Beef will help my channel. Start some beef. Best food stock. And Chris, don't worry. I saw your question. I'll come back to it. Yours requires more to unpack, so I'll bear with me for a second. Chrissy, best foods for me to stock up with on after my surgery: bone broth, gelatin, turmeric. So in terms of like spices and stuff, fish. Eat some fish. Lots of greens, good stuff like that. But again, bone broth and gelatin, definitely number one. Turmeric for anti-inflammatory purposes. From there, kombucha and stuff like that, fermented foods in general won't hurt, because what those are going to do is, I know what you meant, Vic, and actual like arguments with people. I get it. From there, the fermented foods will produce organic acids, and it's kind of funny how we're circling around. We started with kombucha, and now we're moving back to that. The organic acids and the enzymes that are produced by that could potentially help a little bit. Pineapple, definitely crush some pineapple. The bromelain in that is excellent for recovery after surgery. From there, just general, fish. If I didn't say it before, fish is excellent. You know the deal. We've talked nutrition for years and years and years. Avoid all the garbage. What good? Helichrysum for incision, healed mind of the day. Okay, interesting. Sarah, what's up? Okay, so Chris, go back to your question. So actually, there you go. Jody, like you said before, what's fire cream? We posted it before. Nick ran out of his fire cream, grabbed some Tiger Balm, was at the store. Fire cream blows out of the water. Anybody reading this, cop some fire cream. I appreciate the shout out. Thank you very much, Nick. We talked about it before. He said, Sarah, what's up? Okay, Chris, I'm going to go back to your question, though, because I knew you had a good question. Okay, circadian rhythm and meal timing. I've heard numerous different ideologies at this point about eating in the morning versus the night. Newest being eat in the morning after looking into some natural sunlight to start your internal clock. So this is something where I think part of that's going to have to deal with your own your own individuality, your own bio-individuality. Personally, myself, I have found that I don't necessarily like to eat that early in the morning. I found my rhythm, generally speaking, a little bit of, coconut oil, a little bit of coffee, and I'm fine. When I try to eat, generally speaking, not the best thing for me. I mean, it's up to individual people. Now, in terms of what I've seen to be most beneficial, the reason why I generally go with the MCT, coconut oil type end in the morning is that I generally tend to do better with fats. And I also found that to be the case when I tried the 7-day carb test, where when I tried that, super normative dose of carbohydrate first thing in the morning, my brain was not happy. Particularly on the mango day and on the, not the white rice, on the potato day. Those 2 days, my brain was like, nope, you're an idiot. Why are you trying this? And I mean, it was a good experiment. I'm definitely glad I did it, but yeah, definitely a little bit squirrely of a neighborhood in terms of what happened. So in terms of that, I do pretty well on the fat end of things first thing in the morning. Protein as well. And Sarah adding in, I don't eat until 1 to 2 most days, but if I don't sleep well, I find I need to eat first thing in the morning. I concur with that entirely. And Sarah is one of my smartest friends that I know. So Chris, I definitely would, again, that's basically my current same thing there. So my same thoughts on that. Yeah, if I didn't sleep, I generally will eat earlier. Other than that, I do that intermittent fasting window where 12 to 2 is where I generally will break my particular window, and then my later window, 8 to 10. But even then, it is what it is. If I want to eat a little bit, screw it, I'll eat a little bit. But other than that, have a little bit of coffee. Yeah, it's not as much as I like. It appears though from the opposite end. Yeah, definitely make you some coffee and some skinny fat, some MCTs, ready to rock. as easy as it is to get pigeonholed into a dogma and say, no, this is the only way. Like you said, you saw a lot of different things where there's arguments on either end. And there's definitely something for everybody. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like I said, the carbs. And so, real quick on that, why I don't like the carbs overall in the morning is that, A, there's the brain fog aspect, which I've noticed myself. Certain individuals do fine with that. And if it works for you, great. Me personally, don't do that well. But it also sets up the cascade where you get that initial blood sugar spike, and then 2 hours later, you hit bagel, and then 2 hours later, you're like, oh, need some more carbs. And I find that generally to be a bad idea overall. The reason being is that when you are sleeping, your body is slowly moving towards a ketotic state as you are burning through the stores of carbohydrates you have. Now, if you haven't done a full, super long fast, you're not going to ever make it into true ketosis over a night's sleep. But you're starting to get more in that direction. So you're burning more fats overall. So you're burning more free fatty acids, and then your brain starts to use a little bit on the ketone end. But short version of that, when you have the carbohydrate, that first spike of insulin, you're breaking your fast. The MCTs and the fats in general, but specifically the MCTs, are generally going to keep you more towards that ketotic state and won't break your fast. There's major debate as whether it does or not. Whatever. Bear with me for now. That will help keep you sustained with energy because, A, MCTs are a faster energy in the sense that they get through the system. They don't need to be broken down by bile, but they are still a fat, and they are going to have more sustained energy in the sense that there's more caloric density per gram. So, generally speaking, I find that to be the best bet for me. And I've seen that work a lot with people as well. Yes, and actually, funny enough, Sarah, that's kind of where Chris is coming from right now, because he's been reading a decent amount of Jack, and you've been in the scene long enough to know exactly which Jack I'm talking about. Not saying that he's, again, so I've told Chris this myself. When it comes to Jack, Jack may be onto some next level quantum stuff, or he may be completely crazy, but he definitely has some decent ideas. Regardless, for my own purposes, I don't know how much of it I understand, because I don't know how much he's making up, how much is actually legit. So, again, he may actually, like I said, quantum physics is above my pay grade. So, it's way above my pay grade. I liked looking into it, some interesting stuff, but so a lot of the stuff with the photonic aspects and getting into all that and how it affects our biochemistry and physiology, I definitely think there's something there. I mean, I know there's something there. The sun definitely resonates in us. I mean, we know through the fact that we produce vitamin D. There's definitely, the sun does affect our biochemistry and our physiology. No question. We know circadian rhythm is a thing. How much he has, right, he absolutely is a genius. I do not argue with that statement at all. But the line between genius and crazies, yeah. I mean, I know personally, right? But seriously though, how much of that, his synthesized ideas on that are actually accurate? I don't know. Like I said, maybe he's on that next level one. So, yeah. Okay. But running back to that, the whole leptin resistance idea regarding whether or not to eat early or not. Yes, Jack was famous for being one of the first to really push the leptin reset idea. So that's the reason why that came back up. And it kind of links back into your circadian rhythm question there. Being hard for sleep, for sugar, if you stuff it, you lose sleep. And stuff, if you lose sleep. Yes, actually, you're absolutely right, Vic. When you are stressed and when you are lacking sleep, yes, you absolutely will generally have more cravings for sugar. So when you have poor sleep, and that's part of the reason why I know myself, I'm throwing it out there, I feel like Sarah feels the same way, is why we generally end up eating earlier. We don't want to overstress our system. So fasting in and of itself, good idea, short-term acute stress. But if you have a lot of other stresses going on, not necessarily the best idea. So if you didn't sleep well, that's a little bit of a stress. You may be better off eating a little bit earlier to go. So whole gets into some squirrely neighborhoods, but for now, purpose of that is listen to your body. If you absolutely need to eat in the morning, then eat. Have some damn food. Make the best choices you can, and you'll be ready to rock. If you don't have to eat, then don't. If your body is full, have what's going to get you through the day. Now, that, of course, changes based on individual therapeutic needs, based on athletic performance needs. Yeah, this is a general rule. The vast majority of people, well, the vast majority of people today are sick, but you know where I'm trying to go with this. The vast majority of people probably could do better off eating less in terms of less time than they currently do, you know. Anyway, we're getting off track on that particular end of it. Wow, we are an hour 10 into this one right now, which is a lot longer than we normally go. Normally we go half an hour to like 40 minutes, but the questions have been incredible tonight. We got a lot of great comments, a lot of great interaction, and a lot of people on here tonight. So we are definitely past our normal thing, but you know what? Because I've been slacking, you know, if you missed a little bit earlier, I've had been works, you know, different projects and stuff have been kicking my butt. My doctorate program has been really pushing me out, and just the mental capacity haven't been able to do as many of the daily videos I would like to do. But I think this hour, this hour 10 long video had a decent amount of content that we went through. I'll have to go on this one. I'll have to at some point go and actually break down timestamps on what we talked about, because we talked about a lot of different things. I think that could help to at least make up for some of the lack of other content that we put together. Yeah. So God. So Shauna, what's up? You always like. There are a lot of times where you go and miss it. You are late, but you did make it. I will let you get. I'll let you get the closing question. I was actually getting ready to sign off. I appreciate it, Sarah. So Shauna, I'm gonna let you close out the question. Get one question in, because, like I said, normally, you know the deal. I'm usually on half an hour, 40 minutes. We're here for hour 10 right now. Keep it up. Keep it trill. Oh, keep it trill. Come on, we're gonna keep going. All right, I'll give you a second. While we're doing that, everybody else, if you made it this far in live, you've been on here for quite some time. Thank you so much. If you're watching this on the replay and you made it this far, you are insane, but I love you. If you haven't already, please head on over to youtube.com/MikeTheCaveman. Subscribe. It helps out. And what's super squirrely is that in the last couple of weeks, I've ended up gaining more subscribers anyway, even though I haven't been putting out as much content. I don't know. Apparently people got sick of me and didn't want to subscribe, and now when I put out less content, people subscribe more. I don't know. Could be onto something there. Now, the fact that you set an alarm for my live streams is incredible. I appreciate that, Shoshana. Okay. So that's a great question, actually. Thoughts on the effectiveness of a ketogenic diet for an MMA fighter. So, and that's a great one to close out with. Funny enough, so I definitely utilize a ketogenic approach the last definitively 2 weeks of my cut, potentially sometimes a little more. Now, regarding that, that's particularly to help with the water cut, because when you are restricting carbohydrates, you are losing water, okay? So, backtrack for a second. Essentially, glycogen helps you to store water, whereas the other way to do it is salt, and there's salt restriction involved in a weight cut. Now, you're going to store the water. By removing the carbohydrates, you're going to end up cutting water out of it, and it makes it easier to cut the weight. Now, that much being said, it will make you healthier, but Vic, it will also help to reduce inflammation. Now, the reductions in inflammation can go and actually, help you recover faster from from training. And then it can also help to improve mitochondrial function. So it can actually help to improve your training load. Now, there does come a problem with MMA training, because MMA training is both slow terms and it is low intensity. It's also high intensity. meaning that there is transition between slow movements to super fast movements. And because of that, the problem is that you need to have both systems ready to go and be fueled. So if you are a slower fighter in terms of the weight, your grinder, it could be an amazing idea. If you are a super fast-paced fighter, not necessarily the best idea because you're going to need to have that little bit of that carbohydrate load. The idea is to be able to burn both, okay? And that's actually part of the reason why I started really looking, well, it's not the only reason, but part of the reason I looked into the exogenous ketones and stuff. With fighters, the problem, so not as the muscle fibers, Vic, but more so the actual, hold on, this is like the lighting's really messing me up right here. But more so the actual energy systems you're using. So whether you're using carbohydrates, which is more a fast-paced one, you burn fats over endurance exercise, and then at the super high intensity, you use creatine to recycle ATP. Anyway, for our purposes right now, there is the glycolytic pathway, which is a high sugar pathway. For MMA, you're going to want to turn on that pathway. And the problem is with the ketogenic diet, what you're doing is you are ending up stripping most of your stored glycogen. In fact, you're stripping almost all of it. And so your body has to go and convert other sugar from other sources. So in order to activate that pathway, keto may not be the best for a fast twitch fighter. So a guy like a Wonder Boy, baloney, a Wonder Boy or an Arizona John Jones probably wouldn't do well on a keto diet. Whereas conversely, Robbie Lawler, when he fought Condit, when he fought Roy McDonald, when he fought all those fights, probably even when he fought Woodley, which didn't look, isn't really the best idea, but when he fought them, he's actually been keto. He's been super keto for most of his career. Oh, that's a lie. For most of his most recent fights, where he's been fight of the year fights, he's more of a grinder. And while he can turn the pace up, and that can be done, for somebody that's a super fast-paced fighter, generally speaking, not the best. Somebody who's more of a grinder who can turn it up here and there, quick bursts, it can be very beneficial. Now, what's interesting on that last part of that is, yeah, Ricky's definitely great, but Ricky's very fast-paced too. So he's very much fast-paced. He's a little bit column A, a little bit column B. What do you call it? So, sorry, Space Monkey. We already talked about the last question. Shoshana got the last one. But, I'm sure you use a couple of ounces here and there, I guess. Thank you, Sarah. My brain knows too many things. Okay, thank you. So, last closing thoughts on the whole keto idea. Super good idea in terms of cutting the weight, in terms of maintaining it long-term for MMA specific performance, possibly not the best. Okay. Depends on the individual, depends partially on their fighting style. But generally speaking, it can be beneficial, sometimes maybe not. I definitely think it's a good idea for the weight cut process, if nothing else. And Vic and Brian going at it there, discussing that. So, sidetrack there. So, final thoughts, and like I said, in terms of the weight cut, it helps with the water, it helps with the stripping of the water, straining of the water. After that, after you weigh in, I would get in some good carbohydrates, both in the form of, so yeah, from the normal basis, yeah, green vegetables, colored vegetables, so a little bit of starches here and there, cooking cooled if you want to get some resistant starch in. We talked about that earlier. Getting some fermented foods, those would be excellent sources of some carbohydrates. Yeah, that's basically it. I like low-ish carb for most people. Keto for some therapeutic purposes. Keto for the last part of a weight cut. For athletes, you can get a little bit higher on the carb end, but higher to me is more in the range of like 150 to 200 versus like 500. And that's if we're talking about fast twitch athletes, ones who are going to need more on the glycolytic pathway. That's the basic on that. And yeah. What about animas? What, like amines? Aminos. That's what you're saying, aminos. Like amino acids. We talked about protein a little bit earlier. Branching amino acids can be a good idea. I think that's what you're talking about. I'm assuming with that. Oh, wait. Yeah, okay, yeah. So mainly carbs. So how about aminos? Well, that's aminos in what sense? That's gonna open up a whole nother worm of questions. That depends on what you mean by that, man. But at this point, I'm ready to call it a night. We've been on the live stream for an hour and 20 minutes now, so I think we're gonna call it. Sorry, man. Yeah, guys. Again, everybody who joined tonight, thank you so much. Love you guys. If you're watching the replay, you're crazy but cool. I appreciate it. And other than that, please subscribe. YouTube.com/Mike the Caveman. Sick Vic, you were asking before about monetary. There's Patreon.com/Mike the Caveman. I'll put both of those down in the description. Oh, enemas. Funny enough, I actually have a video on coffee enemas. I'll link to that as well. Stan, what's up, brother? Actually closing out now, so last sign off. Been on here long enough. So, all right, guys. Thanks again. Love you, and maybe not tomorrow. I'm gonna say I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe not tomorrow, but see you tomorrow.